Fable is a literary genre. A fable is a succinct fictional story, in prose or verse, that features animals, mythical creatures, plants, inanimate objects or forces of nature which are anthropomorphized, and that illustrates or leads to an interpretation of a moral lesson, which may at the end be added explicitly in a pithy maxim. A fable differs from a parable in that the latter excludes animals, plants, inanimate objects, and forces of nature as actors that assume speech and other powers of humankind. Usage has not always been so clearly distinguished. In the King James Version of the New Testament, I1/4 was rendered by the translators as fable in 1st and 2nd Timothy, in Titus and in 1 Peter. A person who writes fables is a fabulist. History: the fable is one of the most enduring forms of folk literature, spread abroad. Modern researchers agree, less by literary anthologies than by oral transmission. Fables can be found in the literature of almost every country. Aesopic or Aesop's fable, the varying corpus denoted Aesopica or Aesop's fables includes most of the best-known Western fables, which are attributed to the legendary Aesop, supposed to have been a slave in ancient Greece around 550 BCE. When Babrius set down fables from the Aesopica in verse for a Hellenistic prince Alexander, he expressly stated at the head of Book 2 that this type of myth that Aesop had introduced to the sons of the Hellenes had been an invention of Syrians from the time of Ninos and Belos. Epicharmus of Kos and Phormys are reported as having been among the first to invent comic fables. Many familiar fables of Aesop include the crow and the pitcher, the tortoise and the hare, and the lion and the mouse. In ancient Greek and Roman education, the fable was the first of the progimismata training exercises in prose composition and public speaking wherein students would be asked to learn fables, expand upon them, invent their own, and finally use them as persuasive examples in longer forensic or deliberative speeches. The need of instructors to teach, and students to learn, a wide range of fables as material for their declamations resulted in their being gathered together in collections, like those of Aesop. Africa: African oral culture has a rich storytelling tradition. As they have for thousands of years, people of all ages in Africa continue to interact with nature, including plants, breathtaking animals and earthly structures such as rivers, plains and mountains. Grandparents enjoy enormous respect in African societies and fill the new role of storytelling during retirement years. Children and, to some extent, adults are mesmerized by good storytellers when they become animated in their quest to tell a good fable. India has a rich tradition of fabulous novels, mostly explainable by the fact that the culture derives traditions and learns qualities from natural elements. Most of the gods are some form of animals with ideal qualities. Also, hundreds of fables were composed in ancient India during the first millennium BC, often as stories within frame stories. Indian fables have a mixed cast of humans and animals. The dialogues are often longer than in fables of Aesop and often witty as the animals try to outwit one another by trickery and deceit. In Indian fables, man is not superior to the animals. The tales are often comical. The Indian fable adhered to the universally known traditions of the fable. The best examples of the fable in India are the Panchatantra and the Jataka tales. These included Vishnu Sarma's Panchatantra, the Hitopadesha, Vikram and the Vampire, and Sintapa's Seven Wise Masters, which were collections of fables that were later influential throughout the Old World. Benny Perez argued controversially that some of the Buddhist Jataka tales and some of the fables in the Panchatantra may have been influenced by similar Greek and Near Eastern ones. Earlier Indian epics such as Vyasa's Mahabharata and Valmiki's Ramayana also contained fables within the main story, often as side stories or backstory. The most famous fables from the Middle East were the 1001 Nights, also known as the Arabian Nights. Europe: fables had a further long tradition through the Middle Ages, and became part of European high literature. During the 17th century, the French fabulist Jean de La Fontaine saw the soul of the fable in the moral a rule of behavior. Starting with the Aesopian pattern, La Fontaine set out to satirize the court, the church, the rising bourgeoisie, indeed the entire human scene of his time. La Fontaine's model was subsequently emulated by England's John Gay, Poland's Ignacy Krasicki. Italy's Lorenzo Pignotti and Giovanni Rado de Rossi. Serbia's Docite Jobradovia. Spain's far copyright Lix Mara de Samaniego and Toma Este Ire out y Oropesa. France's Jean-Pierre Claris de Florian. And Russia's Ivan Krylov. Modern era. In modern times, while the fable has been trivialized in children's books, it has also been fully adapted to modern adult literature. Felix Salten's Bambi is a Bildungsroman, a story of a protagonist's coming-of-age, cast in the form of a fable. James Thurber used the ancient fable style in his books Fables for Our Time and Further Fables for Our Time, and in his stories The Princess and the Tin Box and The Beast in Me and Other Animals and The Last Clock, a fable for the time, such as it is, of man in lanterns and lances. Władysław Raymont's The Revolt, a metaphor for the Bolshevik Revolution of 1917, described a revolt by animals that take over their farm in order to introduce equality. George Orwell's Animal Farm similarly satirized Stalinist communism in particular, and totalitarianism in general, in the guise of animal fable. In the 21st century, the Neapolitan writer Sabatino Sire is the author of more than 200 fables, that he describes as Oist and protest fables Euro. The characters are not only animals, but also things, beings and elements from nature. Sire unregistered trademark S aim is the same as in the traditional fable, playing the role of revealer of human society. Classic fabulists, Aesop, author of Aesop's Fables. Vishnu Sarma, author of the anthropomorphic political treatise and fable collection, the Panchatantra. Bidpai, author of Sanskrit and Pali animal fables in verse and prose, sometimes derived from Jataka tales. Sintipas, Indian philosopher, reputed author of a collection of tales known in Europe as the Story of the Seven Wise Masters. Gaius Julius Hyginus, author of Fabulae. Phaedrus, Roman fabulist, by birth a Macedonian. Nizami Ganjvi, Walter of England c. 1175, Marie de France. Jala el Adar en Muhammad Borkor, Vardan Ajektsai, Armenian priest and fabulist, Berkir Ha-Nakdan, author of Jewish fables adapted from Aesop's Fables. Robert Henryson, author of the Moral Fabilis of Aesop the Phrygian. Leonardo da Vinci. Bernard of Lublin. Jean de La Fontaine. Sulcan Saba or Beliani. Bernard de Mandeville, author of The Fable of the Bees. John Gay. Gotthold Ephraim Lessing. Ignacy Krasicki, author of Fables and Parables and New Fables, Docite Jobradovia far copyright Lix Mara de Samaniego, best known for the Ant and the Cicade, Toma Este Iriart, Jean-Pierre Claris de Florian author of Fables, Ivan Krylov, Hans Christian Andersen, modern fabulists, Leo Tolstoy. Raphael Pombo Colombian fabulist, poet and writer. Nico Monique. Ambrose Bierce. Sholem Aleichem. George Ade, Fables in Slang, etc. Władysław Raymont. Felix Salten. Don Marquis, author of The Fables of Archie and Mittabel. Franz Kafka. Damon Runyon. James Thurber, Fables for Our Time and Further Fables for Our Time. George Orwell. Dr. Seuss. Isaac Bashevis Singer. Pierre Gamara, Richard Adams. Author of Watership Down, Josa copyright Saramago. Italo Calvino, Cosmicomics etc. Arnold Lobel, author of Fables, winner 1981 Caldecott Medal. Sumati Nomjoshi, author of Feminist Fables. Ramsey Wood, author of Kalila and Dimna, Fables of Friendship and Betrayal. Bill Willingham, author of Fables graphic novels. David Starries, author of Squirrel Seeks Chipmunk, Randall Kennan. Melinda Lake Robinson, author of The Tale of the Goat and the Wolf, winner 2009 the Golden Grove Poetry Award. Pendleton Ward, creator of Adventure Time, notable fable collections, The Jataka Tales, Aesop's Fables by Aesop, Panchatantra by Vishnu Sarma, Baitul Pakisi, Hitopadesha, Seven Wise Masters by Sintipas, 1001 Nights, Fables by Jean de La Fontaine. Fables and Parables by Ignacy Krasicki, Fairy Tales by Hans Christian Andersen, Fables for Our Time by James Thurber, 99 Fables by William March, see also. Allegory, Anthropomorphism, Apologia, Apologue, Fable, Fables, Fairy Tale, Fantastique, Ghost Story, Parable, Proverb, Wisdom, Notes. References, Buckham, Philip Wentworth. Theatre of the Greeks, King James Bible. New Testament. DLR, David Lee Rubin. Fable in Verse, The New Princeton Encyclopedia of Poetry and Poetics.